morning, and we say welcome to yet another edition of the Star Good Morning Show. Today being Thursday, the 8th of August 2019. I am Leonora Jawara, and our inspirational quote for today is from John Delaney. He says, "Climate change is the environmental challenge of this generation, and it is imperative that we act before it is too late." Stories we shall be looking in the program today. AfriCell has announced $100 million financing agreements with the Overseas Private Investment Corporation, which, according to the Minister of Information and Communication, Mohamed Rahman Soare, is a ringing endorsement by the U.S. government in support of the private sector-led growth. The Office of the National Security has distributed relief food and non-food items to thousands of victims of the August 2nd flooding in the capital city that left thousands homeless and properties destroyed. The Global Funds and its partners have held a two-day retreat at the Palace Hotel. The Palace Hotel took care aimed at identifying key challenges that leads to low funds absorption. These stories and more coming up shortly. And with me in the studio is Amara Salami Kanu, Executive Director, Climate Change Forum Network. He will be talking to us on the states of readiness of the country in mitigating the impact of climate change. Good morning, Amara. Nice to have you here.
Good morning, and thank you for having me in the program.
All right, you're welcome. Well, first, let's have a message from our sponsors.
SimCorp allow old and young to make deposit and withdraw cash from their account at any time and anywhere. With Rokel Commercial Bank SimCorp, you can send and receive money at any place and any time. Rokel Commercial Bank don't make life better for we all.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is the Star Good Morning Show. It's 9 minutes gone past the hour 9, and now we begin the program with a first news item. AfriCell on Tuesday, 6 August 2019, reaffirmed its $100 million financing agreement with the Overseas Private Investment Corporation, the United States government agency that finances and supports investments by American businesses in emerging markets. Now, the $100 million financing agreement with AfriCell, according to the Minister of Information and Communications, Mohamed Rahman Soare, is a ringing endorsement by the U.S. government in support of the private sector-led growth. Yessie Hallowell has more and in our reports.
AfriCell Holding Limited on Tuesday, 6 August 2019, reaffirmed its $100 million financing agreement with the Overseas Private Investment Corporation, OPIC, the United States government agency that finances and supports investments by American businesses in emerging markets. The $100 million financing agreement with AfriCell, according to the Minister of Information and Communications, Mohamed Rahman Soare, is a ringing endorsement by the U.S. government in support of the private sector-led growth. The American ambassador to Sierra Leone, Maria Brewa, noted that the event represents yet another example of the strong partnership between the United States and Sierra Leone, adding that a critical part of the ongoing partnership that involves collaborating with the private sector to help create investment in critical infrastructure such as telecommunications.
Today's event represents yet another example of a strong partnership between the United States and Sierra Leone. A critical part of our ongoing partnership involves collaborating with the private sector to help create investments in critical infrastructure such as telecommunications. The U.S. Overseas Private Investment Corporation, or OPIC, is a self-sustaining U.S. government agency that helps American businesses invest in emerging markets. So today, I am very proud to announce to you that OPIC has concluded a $100 million U.S. financial arrangement with AfriCell. The OPIC helps American businesses gain footholds in these new markets. It catalyzes new revenues and contributes to jobs and growth opportunities both at the United States and internationally in countries like Sierra Leone. OPIC provides businesses with financing, political risk insurance, and advocacy services, and accomplishes more by partnering with private equity investment fund managers. Their revised charter, established with the newly developed U.S. Development Finance Corporation, now permits direct equity investments in overseas projects.
Representing the founder and chairman of Africell, the managing director, Africell Sierra Leone, Shadi Gajawi, stated that Africell is at the forefront of the evolving landscape of African communication, data and technology-enabled services, and together with OPIC and other stakeholders, Africell will continuously invest in new solutions which drive development and improve customers' experience.
Africell is delighted to reaffirm today the signing of a $100 million financing agreement with the Overseas Private Investment, OPEC, the U.S. government's development finance institution. The signing of this finance agreement followed the execution of a commitment letter for the loan at the African Investment Forum in Johannesburg in November 2018. The financing will be used to expand the availability, reach, coverage, and quality of communication, in addition to other associated value-added services and fintech services like mobile payments, microfinance, and microinsurance across Africa in all the operations that we are in Gambia, Sierra Leone, DRC, and Uganda, depending on each country's specific needs, whether it is infrastructure or whether it's technology. We see this financing agreement from OPEC as a clear vote of confidence in the operations and vision of Africell. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Madam Ambassador and all the members of your team who supported us right through the process in making this a reality, and particularly Dr. Darren Smith, who was helpful from the beginning.
The Minister of Information and Communications, Mohamed Rahman Soare, on behalf of the government of Sierra Leone, commended the U.S. government, noting that the signing of the $100 million financing agreement with Africell is a testimony of the role and support the United States in building the capacity of the private sector in the country. And the event is a ringing endorsement by the U.S. government in support of the private sector-led growth.
Africell and Sierra Leone have come a long way. We have been through thick and thin together. So, we are confident that Sierra Leone will get our fair share of this $100 million in investment, so that, as declared, we will be able to invest this into network expansion to support His Excellency President Liu's pet project of improving reach and access, particularly in unserved and underserved communities. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is important to note that this ceremony is happening here today as a testimony of the role and support the U.S. and Sierra Leone have always had for each other over the years. I wish to use this opportunity to reiterate His Excellency President Liu's commitment to creating a congenial and enabling private sector investment where the private sector could do their businesses without any encumbrances, where they will repatriate their legitimate profits, and where opportunities will be created for our myriad army of unemployed youth to secure jobs and at the same time contribute to national development.
The Overseas Private Investment Corporation is a self-sustaining U.S. government agency that helps American businesses invest in emerging markets. Established in 1971, OPIC provides businesses with the tools to manage the risk associated with foreign direct investment, foster economic development in emerging markets, countries, and advances U.S. foreign policy and national security priorities. Reporting for Star Television News, I am Yesi Hallowell.
Many thanks to you, Yesi Hallowell, for putting that report together. You're watching the Star Good Morning Show here on Star TV. And like I said earlier, is Amara Salami Kanu, Executive Director of Climate Change Forum Network. We are discussing the impact of climate change in Sierra Leone. Good morning again, Amara.
Good morning, and thank you for having me in the program once more.
All right. Before we take the discussion further, let's get to know a little bit about your organization.
Of course. Climate Change Forum Network was formed in 2014 after the IPCC, the Interpanel Convention on Climate Change report that ranked us as the third most vulnerable country in the whole world. So these have actually geared up that young people must create change. And since that time, we have been advocating for climate change issues, biodiversity conservation, and issues relation for environmental management. And I've been saying this: climate change is not an environmental issue. Climate change is a sustainable challenge because it's a cross-cutting issue. It cuts all sectors within the governance structure. And sustainability cannot be achieved if climate change is not mainstreamed in our national plan. So over the years, we have been advocating, we have been implementing projects, and as of recent, we are implementing a project to UNDP. I want to tell them thanks for the support under the small grant program, in which we've planted 2,500 trees of mangroves. Mangroves plus economic trees, because we are taking the issues of tree planting, not only you planting trees that you don't know the specific species that you are planting. So we conducted the studies to actually know the type of species that can adapt to the rising impact of climate shocks, especially within the coastal lines. So we targeted Cambia, and of course we planted 2,500 trees of mangroves, which they are doing fine and well, and the people there, they are very, 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 very much so happy. These are recent projects that we are implementing with the small grant program. But prior, before this time, we have been also representing Sierra Leone in international negotiations. We are also a signatory to the United Nations Convention on Climate Change, and every year we have conference of parties. We have countries who come and pledge their obligations to fight climate change. So there are some negotiation skills under the component of either adaptation, mitigation, technological transfer, capacity building, and climate finance, because which is critical. So we have been representing Sierra Leone in that under the civil society wing with some government stakeholders over the past years, and which we have been doing fine. And now is for us now to domesticate those golden rules into our national development plan, how best we can fit in all those negotiations internationally and try to take our national plan to quench them together so we can increase the resilience to the impact of climate change. Okay. So on the nutshell, that have actually been our work.
Good. You highlighted that you met with people, you plant trees, but the key thing is how much are people aware about the impacts of climate change?
Yeah, these have been our campaign. If you have been following us over the years, not even now, this has been our campaign since we experienced the flood in 2015 that led to the death of 8 people. We experienced it again in 2017. We are 1,000 lives we are lost, and $30 million from the World Bank assessment was also lost from that 6 hours rent. And 2019 again, I said it in this very studio. If people can attest to that, if the nation can attest to that, I said it in this very studio about 5 months ago that the projection have actually shown, because we have what we call in climatology the return period, 2-3 years interval. Now, because the return period per se is actually 5 years climatologically, you understand, but due to climate change impact and other issues that are happening, global warming, so now we are having the return period for Sierra Leone after every 2 years. And mark you again, I will say it here, that 2021 we are going to experience massive flood more than even this one. So I'm saying it, this is just a projection. I said it in this very studio about 5 months ago that we held a meeting in Mauritania, which an assessment was done for the Sahel region, because Sierra Leone, we are part of the Sahara, the sub-Sahara set. And looking at our climate, we are under the tropics, so we are experiencing monsoon climate. So they try to do projections that again we are going to experience it. And September again we are going to experience this particular flood. I said it in this very, very studio, that we are going to experience extreme climate weather event. Extreme climate weather events. What I mean about this, that the rain will come more than the threshold that we are expecting it. The Meteorological Agency, I want to say thanks to the Director General and the Deputy Director General, they have been so proactive to give out daily weather forecasts so people can understand about how the climatic changes are happening. So these projections have actually showed our vulnerability to the impact of climate change. I mean, because they are actually looking at Sierra Leone, we don't have the resources to respond to disaster issue. We are not embarking on research. Our economy is too small. Our cohesion in terms of fighting climate change is very weak. So they are all looking at this component and try to see how this country can actually adapt to climate change.
But as of now, what's your assessment on Sierra Leone's current climate change situation?
It's becoming worsen every day, and it's becoming worrisome for us, because to be honest with you, it's going to have a great impact in the economy. It's going to have a great impact in creation of green growth economy, and our generations are going to be affected. But we are blessed with the president that is so committed. I have to say this without any hesitation. The president is so committed to fight climate change. But what we need to do, we need to strengthen our strategies to ensure that we have all players on decks. Even the media have been left out of this. Well, when you go to countries like Kenya, the media has a centralized role to play in terms of advocacy, propagating the message, domesticating the message, because it's scientific. But the people, the layman, need to understand that the places that I'm living, they are prone to issues of climate change, and what are the best practices I need to do in terms of increasing my resiliency. Like the issues of early warning. This is what I've been always saying over the years, that no country can succeed in its sustainable development goals when early warning does not take the center stage. It's not about you cleaning the drainages. It's not about you asking the people out of bay. To be honest with you, even if you ask them out of bay, we are going to experience flooding again. To be honest with you, what we need to do as a nation, we've done it for the quality education, for God's sake. We can also do it for climate change. Let's commit 5% of our national budget for early warning. What I mean about this, when you're passing by Parliament, you can see a very big ball. It's called a radar. In countries like America, when they are doing their forecast, the radar can tell you the time, the hour, the place, the minute that disaster is going to strike. So it's all about our preparedness mechanism. So if we actually commit 5% of our national budget to early warning mechanism, to be honest with you, the issue of flood, I will not say the impact is going to be that large, but will reduce the impact that we are actually facing presently. To be honest with you, because you look at the topography of the land, it's not even suitable. You understand? So when there is a heavy downpour of rain, there is a quick, transportation of debris materials that is going to find its way down to the shores. So we are going to see that if we don't have a robust infrastructure mechanism, to be honest with you, at least to control the runoff activities that is happening up the hills, we are going to experience it again. And the issue of research, which I really want to embark on.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So before we come to that, we saw the flooding last Friday, we saw disaster happening, we saw crack on the hill. Now, my question is, to what extent do human-made elements such as deforestation, encroachment, overbuilding, climate change, all of these contributing to this disaster?
Let's take, for instance, the deforestation. Let's take land use plan, the land use planning mechanism. We have the national land policy. We have strategies, recommendations. The laws are there. But the problem is the enforcement of those laws. Now, when you look at we are conducting also a study. We are collaborating with a geological firm, which is called Art Services. You understand? SLIJ, they are doing their own studies. We are also doing our own studies to come with fact findings. It's nice when institutions are embarking now on research. But we are also comprises of environmental geologists. Geologists is a very big field. We have the mining geologists. We are focusing on environmental issues, purely on the geology in relation to environmental issues. We are not only looking at the geological hazards, because when you want to embark the research on detailed investigation, because what we are doing is probabilistic investigation now, but we want other partners to work with us so we can have a detailed investigation. We are also collaborating with meteorologists to know the climatic weather within the Motomen axis, the agronomists to know the vegetation cover, the types of species that are within that place, even the hydrologists to know the runoff activity. So we are not only focusing on the work of the geologists, but we are not rushing it quick, because as scientists we have to get fact findings. Even though we are doing the probabilistic investigation, we are also developing what we call a policy brief. We are coming very hard, you understand, because we don't want to rush issues when we don't have facts. Now, because the rationale is basically hinged on the issue of the lives of people, properties, and our only reservoir that we have within the township is located within that area. So if there are imprints of open cracks, geological cracks within that areas, that is going to also affect the water issue within the township.
So when that crack reoccurred again, what did you do? Did you do a survey there?
Oh yeah, we did a survey. This
What's
is
your
where
findings?
our findings were very much clear. That what we experienced, the second disaster that happened, is not a landslide. It's not a landslide. You understand? But some of us, we have to get first the fact before we come.
It's not
to
a
the point.
landslide. Then what is
It
it?
was a mudslide. It's a mudslide because when you take a look at distance, the distance that the disaster happened, this second one, it's not even up to 1 kilometer. It was just an accumulation of debris that have been so wet in terms of the moisture content was so heavy because due to the heavy downpour of rain. So the plasticity, there's a cohesion within those fine grains materials. So there was, because of the steep slope stability, there was a sudden fall on the toe of the hill. So because of the distance that is caused and no lives was lost, so we are not only looking at the geological aspect, but the socio-economic aspect is also key, because when you are doing, even if you are doing a probabilistic investigation, it has to be solid before coming out to the public. You understand? We are not looking at one side, but the economic aspect, the hydrological aspect, because now there are a lot of aquifers within that area, because of we have the reservoir within that. The only dam that we have is located within that area. So the hydrological aspect is going to be highly studied again. The climatological aspect, when there is issues of changes in climate, because now climate change is affecting. You understand? And we also find out that during the 2017 landslide, two other landslides happened within that area. The imprints, they are very, very more clear. When you go to the place at the back of the hill, there were two other landslides that happened, but they were not even talked about. Understand? So we are coming with our findings in relation that when there was the sudden shock, the seismic activity that happened, there was transportation of heavy rocks materials, which have weakened the edges of the channel, because there's a channel, because a river is there, there's a flowing river at that place. So the edges within those areas have been hardly hit when that landslide occurred. So the force of attraction, because of the high pressure, actually lead to that crack. And the crack is, we found that crack from pipeline to that of Bangbaila. So there's 26 meters off that crack. But this is what we want. We want a detailed investigation, because what we are doing, one, you even need the engineering aspect to show you the slope angle, the slope stability, calculations. Figures have to speak. It's not you coming here to talk about it, but figures have to speak for itself. So we need a detailed investigation. That's why we are crying out to the international partners, especially UNDP, UNOPS, and that of the Directors of Science and Technology, because that's their mandate. But let's go beyond the issues of scientific competing to embark on rigid scientific investigation, so we can get fact findings that will help government to do proper planning, then can also open the space for highly research, because this is the first, to be honest with you, this is the first geohazard that have happened within West Africa. Other countries can also learn from us, but if we don't get the fact, we only base on response.
Of these cracks, what is the cause?
Is
it the climate change? Has it been a contributing factor?
Climate change is a contributing factor under the aspect of anthropogenic activities, human-induced problem, because of the massive construction activities. And when we also look at the activities that are happening within the Sugarloaf Mountain and that of the Freetown Complex, you can see that the road construction companies are also having their quarries within the Freetown Complex. You understand? This process will not occur so sudden. It's going to take time. So the blasting activities that are happening within the Freetown Complex has a lot to do, because the hill is elongated. You understand? The hill is joined together with other hills. So whatever effect that is happening on one side, it will have a ripple effect on the end of another side. So there are construction activities happening within that area. Then massive construction in terms of we are building houses. We are not actually going by the rules, the golden rules, in terms of issues of building permits from this MDs, you know, they first have to investigate the place where you're going to build, to test the soil stability, the types of rocks before you giving that building permit. So we are not looking at all these golden rules. You understand? So anthropogenic activities have also been a major cause into all of this, and the natural event. You know, now I told you about the change in the climatic issue. Now we have what we call a return period. That after every year, because we are now studying the trend, this is why I'm saying that research is so big. We are not only looking at the geohazard, we are not only looking at the geology. You understand? Geology is just a small aspect into this research. We are also looking at the climatic change. The meteorological aspect is very, 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 very key. Now we are also looking at the return period. Now we are going to study the trend of the return period. Now we know that in next 2 years again, we will be faced with this. There is also a projection that we are 2030 we are going to face a drought. So what is our our mechanism in terms of responding to these disaster shocks? So all of this anchor on the National Climate Change Council. I mentioned it earlier on that we need a national platform to discuss all these ideas. These beautiful ideas cannot be utilized if we don't have other critics coming into play, allowing only a single institution monopolizing everything. So the efficiency and effectiveness will be very more low to tackle climate change issues.
So after the 2017 disaster, the mudslide, is it a mudslide in 2017?
It was a landslide in 2017.
A landslide, okay. Yeah. But what's the difference between a landslide and mudslide?
There's a difference. The quick difference for viewers is the distance of its occurrence. Okay. The landslide that happened, it's up to 1 kilometer because there was a sudden cracks. Then the rocks were moved up to Kamayama area. So the distance there is so big compared to that of the mudslide. Although it's all about the same geological activities because of the heavy downpour of rain, the soil materials have been so weakened, the rocks have been so weakened, so there was sudden fall. So the difference between this one that happened, that because it was not spotted by any institution, it was spotted by the community. This what we are failing to realize. We are not against any institution, but don't look at one side. Let's get a holistic, although it's a probabilistic investigation. Even the engineers have their own aspect into all of this. To do the rock calculations and the geotechnical aspects, you understand, has to be robust. So all what we are doing is for us to have a rigid investigation to
disaster in 2017. Is there any lessons learned? Could we have prevented a reoccurrence of such?
Yeah, first we have we all know that massive construction activities are happening there, and the stone mining also is happening within that area. Although the effect is going to accumulate gradually as we go by, but the construction activity, to be honest with you, we went there, we saw some houses that have even cracked. The people are still staying within those areas. The houses, they are having cracks. You understand? Because of man activities within that area, have actually led to all of this. But the problem that we have a national land policy. And all of this policy, there are strategies, there are laws. The enforcement is only the problem that we have. If only the government of Sierra Leone can enforce the law, you understand, to limit construction activities that are happening. There is no political will? No, I said it. The president is so committed to fight climate change. But people who are in position of trust have to take the bull by its horn this time around. The president is committed because we are part of the Paris Agreement. We are signatory to the Paris Agreement. We are signatory to most of these environmental conventions, protocols, and treaties. But the problem is the enforcement of the law. If we enforce the law, then we prosecute individuals that are engaged in these illegal activities. The issues of land grabbing within that area is also a growing concern. So these are all compounding factors that are happening there. And we are not only focusing on Motome. When you also look at the coastal lines, like areas like John Ube, where that massive flooding also occur, areas within Tumbo and Waterloo, there is massive sand mining activities happening there. As I speak from this moment, we don't even have a policy to regulate the sand mining. So why
is there no robust action taken against those defaulters? They wait until the disaster occur. That's the time they want to take action.
This is why we have been advocating over the years that let's have a national platform It's not an office. We are not calling for the creation of an office. But we are stakeholders meet like a council, wherein it's going to be divided by strata. We have the political index area, we have the technical aspect wherein it's comprised of the MDAs and the national public, like the issues of the civil society will have their own say. This media will also evaluate, monitor on funds that are coming to this country for climate change purposes that are not being utilized properly. So that will make an eye-opener to create that transparency, which is also a component under the United Nations Framework Conventions. You understand? Transparency. It has to be transparent in whatever thing we are doing. The problem, if we don't have that national platform, the coordination will be very more poor. That you can see institutions will only call upon other institutions when there's a disaster. This should not be happening because we experienced the fire incident during the dries. After 2 weeks, everything died down. We also experienced again. Mark what I'm telling you today. After 1 month, you will not hear about it again. Or don't talk about it. Or wait until there's another disaster. That's the time you see MDAs passing beyond donors for them to have their own support. So the issue we need a national platform. Then we also need a readiness disaster fund. There should be certain amount of money committed by the government to fight disaster issue, climate change. Let's have that fund, which is fixed. We should not wait until when there's a disaster. Now we are finding money to even do what to call search and rescue. So if you have that readiness fund, it will be nice. Then the issue of climate financing is very, very more key. Let's try to ensure that we put our budgeting, the national budget we are presently doing, let's mainstream every sector, because climate change cuts across every sector within the governance structure. Agriculture, water resources, they even finance. Let them have a climate change component that we are committed to fight climate change and have a budget for climate change activity because it affects everyone, it affects every sector, and it has a tendency to undermine the new direction. Now, the government, they have been distracted, to be honest with you, because this is what I've been saying, 5 months ago, that we need not, because the president is doing so well to ensure that there is economic reform, the creation of jobs. So if there is a sudden occurrence of climate shocks, it's going to distract the focused attention of the president. And this is what we are presently seeing. Okay. So to mitigate climate change issue, it's a complex scenario, but we need a national voice to at least reduce the vulnerability.
There is Amara Salamikano, Chief Executive Director of Climate Change Forum Network. We're discussing the impact of climate change in Sierra Leone. This is the Star Good Morning Show. 9:39 is the time from our studio clock. Now, let's turn our attention to another issue. The Office of National Security, the ONS, has on Tuesday, 6 August 2019, distributed relief food and non-food items to thousands of victims of the August 2nd flooding in the capital city that left thousands homeless and properties destroyed. Moses Ojo Kamara takes up the story.
The Director of Disaster Management, Office of National Security, John Vandy Rogers, has said that the government of Sierra Leone cares about its people. That's why they are so proactive in tackling the needs of the homeless as a result of the inevitable flooding incident that occurred in the country. He, however, added that government, together with its international partners, will come together to ensure that supportive gears will be provided in line to mitigate the flooding problem people are facing.
This thing happened on the 2nd of August. Government of Sierra Leone get concerned for now. Make sure say the international partners then come together for ensure say government provide leadership for able for support some of the challenges on the face. Now based upon that, over the past 1 to 3 days, we've done the try for Taiwo Oja for ensure say we're able to address some of the problems that we want on the face. Based upon that, we're there today together with the bosses then so that we'll be able to make them presentation at owner. At the end of the day, them presentation will give una, make able for help una for reducing the challenges.
The National Director, Caritas Sierra Leone, William Dauda, said that with the aid of the Catholic Relief Services, Freetown City Council, Office of National Security and other non-governmental organizations, they are able to provide for a little over 800 destitutes in the municipality.
This package is actually provided by Caritas Freetown. Caritas Sierra Leone is a combination of Caritas in the Archdiocese of Freetown, Caritas Bo, Caritas Kenema, and Caritas Makeni. With regards to the response to the flood affected communities in Freetown. Caritas in the Archdiocese of Freetown is actually taking the lead in responding to all of the affected communities. The particular community we are currently in, Caritas Freetown is leading provision of food items and other relief items. This includes provision of rice, baby food items, milk, food items, and also for affected families. In addition to the rice we are providing, Caritas is also providing condiment for the food items. And this is made possible by contribution from our Catholic Development Agency, Catholic Relief Services, CRS. CRS has provided a sum of $15,000 to be able to provide quick response to the affected communities.
A beneficiary expressed his delight in the donation and described it as timely, adding that this shows that government cares and considers them important because of such a proactive move in ensuring that their needs are met.
Tell Allah thank you for this day because they could not be free, so they get the support. But government people don't get the support. I tell Allah thank you, I tell Una thank you. God make this still possible today. I appreciate you very, very much.
For Star News here in Freetown, I am Moses Ojukama reporting.
Thank you, Moses. And Amara Salami Kanu is still with me in the studio. Now, Sierra Leone is the third vulnerable country in the world that is at risk of climate change activities. What does this mean for us as a nation?
This means that we are exposed to the issues of climate shocks. This means that we can be hit by climate shocks at any time, at any minute. This shows that we are at war with climate change globally, and we have to strengthen our national activities to ensure that we become resilient to these climate shocks. And of course, I see it as an opportunity, to be honest with you. Climate change, to be here, over the years, have not been given the space to be in government discussions, in national priorities. It has not been given it's the space to achieve its goals in terms of fighting it back. But it's showing itself now with the extreme weather event that we are facing with relation to the flooding and the mudslide that just happened. And about a few days back, we experienced flooding in Tumbo. And we are going to experience it again. I'm saying it here. We are going to experience massive flooding in September. Mark you. And I'll come here one day and remind the nation again that I've said it, as I said it earlier on, within the 5 year, within this 5 months, that we are going to experience flooding for this year. So this shows that we are at war with climate change, and we have to tighten our belt as a nation to at least fight or tackle climate change issues. What we need to do as a nation now, we need a special advisor to the president on climate change issues. Because our institutions, they have failed us in this nation. Our institutions, they have not been embarking on research. So to get the fact findings is going to be a big problem. The president is committed. I'll continue to say it. I'll continue to commend him. It's not by mistake that the National Nation Secretary General Assembly in US, they have put 3 days aside just on climate action. So who are we when we are the third most vulnerable country in the whole world? What they mean about third most vulnerable country, that disaster can happen here at any time and it can destroy, the impact will be very huge. Why can't we get...
And reports have said that we were going to have drought in 2030.
Yeah, this is a projection, 2030. And 2030, if God permits me to be alive at that time, I'll remind the nation again that we are going to experience drought. So what is our preparedness for this event? So all these anchor on the issue of our institutions have to do more, and they have to give the civil society space. Like for us, our own style of advocacy is not about bashing government or supporting government, but we are comprised of expertise. Like for me, I'm a renewable energy expert. I'm also a geologist, you understand, by profession. I did my first degree in geology and now I'm doing my master's in renewable energy. So we are not actually working for government, but we want to support government to achieve its goals. If government can give us a space the directors of science and technology, they have a scientific angle. Let's go beyond the computerization, the ITC. We need scientific investigation. The pure and apply must be there to ensure that we get fact findings so we can help government or advise government on the necessary steps they have to take in terms of tackling climate change. We are open up to work with whosoever is willing to open up to work with us, ranging from the government aspect, the international donor partners. You understand? We are expatriates that are focusing on issues on not only climate change, but biodiversity conservation and wildlife. So these are all cropping up issues that we are not talking about, which we are focusing now, and we continue to amplify our voice. So government will prioritize these areas, to be honest with you, because we are seeing the negative impact of climate change. Now, to be honest with you, it's going to affect greatly the agricultural sector. I was in Cambia, and for this year, I tried to interview some smallholders, farmers. They are telling me that the yield they expect for this year is going to reduce drastically because they are not getting the right rains they're supposed to get. Like the sudden rush, because there's a flash flood within that area also last week. It has destroyed almost 6 hectares of land that they are planning actually to cultivate. So these are compounding factors that are telling us that climate change is real, and we are faced with climate change, and we need to be robust. So because now the agricultural sector is going to be hardly hit. The crop yield is going to reduce drastically.
Events happening, it shows the possibility of making future risks even more greater.
This is why we need research to come into the play. Because if we don't try to get research, now we are going to these negotiations, we'll continue to negotiate, but are we domesticating these policies? Are we enforcing the law? Because the law has to take the center stage of all of this. Now we are getting problem with the sand and stone mining. We don't even have a policy to regulate that sector. And that sector is generating more than 100 million leons per day. So I've been saying that it's a cartel industry, that people who are in position of trust, they are involved in all of this. One wants to get a national policy on sand and stone mining, it's going to control the level of sea level rise. Now, Tumbo is experiencing flooding. Danube is experiencing flooding because we've taken away all the sands from the coastal lines. So we are exposing those areas to what we call sea level rise. When there's an increase in 1 meter in sea level rise, can cost to over millions of dollars worth of properties are going to be destroyed in just 1 meter rise in sea level rise change. So these are all issues that are happening. We have to be very serious when we are fighting environmental issues.
What could be your key recommendations to government in terms of mitigating the risk?
Firstly, let's support the Israeli Meteorological Agency. We need a robust early warning mechanism. If we don't have the right forecasting weather equipment to do the forecast, you understand? Because climate information is very key. When you want to fight climate change, you have to get the daily information in the various meteorological parameters, whether it be on pressure, temperature, and that of the rainfall, you understand? When I listened to BBC, the Deputy Director General said it's clear to Umaru Fofana that we recorded 176 millimeters of rain, which is more than the rain that was recorded in July 2016. That has shown you that there's drastic change in climate change issues. So the climate information is very key. When the government will prioritize, at that time when the government will prioritize that agency, support them 5% of the national budget. Let's have a state-of-the-art radar. Let's have an automatic weather stations. Let's have the requisite human resource to do the work. Let's have a meteorological school wherein will not, because it's so expensive, although they have their own guidelines, the WMO guidelines and SOPs, you understand. But let's have our own school to train our own meteorologists. As I speak, we only have 2 certified meteorologists in the whole of Sierra Leone. 2 trained certified meteorologists. So they need more support for the government for them to be proactive. When we've achieved those goals, then we come to the issues of our readiness mechanism.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how can you describe the state's readiness in terms of mitigating climate change?
To be honest with you, although the president, I'll continue to say it, the president is so committed to fight against climate change, but our readiness mechanism is still very weak. We have to do more. This is why we need a platform. So we'll explain out what are our challenges. How are we going to build up on these challenges? What are the recommendations coming from all players, be it from that political range to down to that of the CSOs, and have even the fourth estate the media houses to have their own saying on strategy, because you can do it better in terms of communication. You understand? The CSOs can do it, but we you know, their strategies, their recommendations, their standards in terms of communicating to the public. So that's why we need a national platform. So where we discuss all these ideas. Where have we gone wrong? How can we take Sierra Leone as from that ranking as a third most vulnerable country to something somewhere, I mean, to somewhere else that is, I mean, that is not that that's not that disastrous when it comes to that rank, I mean, to the IPCC ranking. So all these compounding factors have to be there. And our readiness fund, the disaster readiness fund, there should be a special fund under either the office of the president or the office of the vice president for disaster response. Now you are seeing ONS passing around for them to find funds. Is this the time that we should be discussing about it? This is the time that our readiness mechanism in terms of search and rescue should be there now. The money will be there. Commitment by the government to ensure that this thing happens. Then the issue of climate change financing. There are several financing windows across the world to fight climate change, but only we need a national implementing entity, which the Ministry of Finance should really work with the EPA for them to have that accredited institution, because these guys, to be honest with you, will continue to go there, but they will not give us money unless you have an accredited institution by your government before the support can come in. So all these are loopholes that we have to still fix as an issue, and also increasing the awareness raising is also a major component. You know, I want to say thanks to the Meteorological Agency, because for the first time now we are getting reliable weather forecast daily to the public through the WhatsApp and issues of Facebook. You understand? These forecasts, they are actually there. You know, they have been doing well, but they need more support. If they have the requisite support, they will do more than this. But it's a step in the right. I mean, it's a step in the right direction. But
I'm just wondering, can we actually adapt to climate change?
Yeah, we can adapt. We can adapt. Adaptation mechanism should be robust. Now they are developing also the NAP. Although we have not started at the NAP, we've done the framework. The NAP, the government per se, because I'm not part of it. I'm just a CSO. They are developing the NAP. So this is what we have been recommending. Our adaptation mechanism has to be in line with the government priorities. Now, when you look at the cluster 7 under the vulnerability of the midterm development plan, much was not talked about climate change. What was talked about is an emergency response. But there are recommendations when you want to adapt to climate change issue. This is why we still have a room for improvement. We can still go back to the drawing board to ensure that we capture the necessary strategies that we have, because I will not even recommend it to the government to mitigate climate change, because it's expensive. You talk about technological transfer, the government don't have that money to go purely into renewable energy. You understand? It's so expensive. Now they are trying, as they normally used to say, they meet a battered economy. So they are trying to do massive reform in the economic sector. But all this can be achieved if we have robust adaptation strategies that are aligned with the midterm development plan. Because as we speak, the cluster 7 that talks about vulnerability is not enough to tackle climate change. So the government will not prioritize it. But this is why I want to crave on the indulgence of the Minister of Economic Planning, that we are willing to work with you if only we are given the space. So let's have a robust strategy in that midterm development plan. It's never too late. We are 4 years down the line. So if we are facing with climate change shocks, climate change impact, but our response mechanism is very more weak compared to that of the intensity of the shocks that are happening. Now we are experiencing again with mudslide, and now we'll continue to experience another environmental hazard. So what are we doing as a nation now? All what we need, let's make it open. A single institution cannot achieve it, and our readiness mechanism should also anchor. We should not discuss climate change issues or disaster issues during only the rains. Our preparedness should start from the dries. Let's try to see what we can do to strengthen our readiness mechanism before we enter into the rains. But now,
so finally, what will also be your advice to people living in poor areas?
My advice, because I want to remind them again, I said it here 5 months ago that we are going to experience flooding for this year. My advice to those who are living within the coastal lines, that climate change is not going to pick if you are SLPP or APC. It goes beyond the politics. This is purely scientific, technical. So if you can allow me to say it in Creole, then it would be nice, so people can actually understand. If you know, say you're in a disaster-prone area, for this year, we are going to be we'll get for be hardly hit by climate change. We all see what will happen when rain they come. And then they pick you either a SLPP or APC. Where they come now for destroy your lives and your property. So you back get responsibility. Although government gets a part for play, but you back as an individual get a part for play for ensure say you get for save your life. So without don't they experience water they can inside your place, you need to move now a safe area first. Because what you get for experience down the line is going to be even worse than what you experience on the 2nd of August. So for protect yourself, you need to stay safe and ensure no more say there's a change in climate change issues. But we always the galvanize support. Say we need more climate commitment from the government. Although the president committed, but we need more support for ensure say we reduce vulnerability to climate shocks.
Okay, thank you so very much. He's Amara Salami Kanu, Chief Executive Director of Climate Change Forum Network. We've been discussing the impact of climate change in Sierra Leone. And please, those of you living in disaster-prone areas, try to stay safe. Well, that's how we end the program for today. Thank you so very much, Amara. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me in the program.
All right, I shall be back tomorrow with another edition. I am Leonora Jawara. Have yourself a wonderful day. Leaving you with a quote from John Delaney. He says, climate change is the environmental challenge of this generation, and it is imperative that we act before it's too late.